Today's November 16th, 2017, and John, Coin Daddy just dropped another beat, another rhyme, another screed against Fortress guy.
A rap of sorts. Love Coin Daddy. He's actually done a great job with a lot of these songs.
Do you know this
when
guy?
You and I go overseas, I don't know him yet, but when you and I go overseas, Andrew, we're going to introduce each new ICO by playing Coin Daddy in between the introductions, kind of like the ring music when they announce the fighters.
Oh, that'd be funny.
I already asked them, and they said, "Yeah, John, that sounds great." I said, "Well, we're doing it."
All right. There you go. Coin Daddy's getting some airplay over in the UK and Geneva. That's coming up. I got my ticket, by the way. I'm going through Iceland to get there.
Fantastic. It's going to be a great event. I'm, in fact, on the way over to the NASDAQ right now. I've got 3 or 4 more interviews now, and then I head over to, then I fly home tonight.
All right, so back to this Coin Daddy rap.
Yes.
This guy that they're talking about, Novogratz.
Novogratz.
They're talking about you actually know these guys from Fortress. A few of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I knew him from. He was at some of the SALT conferences.
That's right.
Strategic Alternative Asset Conference that Anthony Scaramucci runs out in Vegas. And Novogratz was there. I think I've met him at maybe Delivering Alpha conference as well. So it's one of those deals with CNBC where I get access to a lot of those folks, smart people like Mr. Novogratz. I don't know him as well, Andrew, but I did have dinner with Peter Brigger. Peter Brigger is a fellow Princetonian because they're both Princeton dudes. I think Novogratz might have been on the wrestling team, if I'm not mistaken. Peter is he is one of the monsters in crypto trading. I believe he owns some or all of at least 2 exchanges. He's, one of the guys that was an early adapter. They were both Goldman Sachs guys. Peter is, I believe, listed still as a co-founder of Fortress. I believe Mr. Novogratz has retired, but is still extremely active in the crypto space, in particular with Bitcoin. But I suspect, like all of us, he is not just trading Bitcoin. It's probably Ethereum. It's probably Litecoin. It's that he is probably trading, not just owning, but trading.
Yeah. According to the song, he's going to get his 100 billion back.
Asset class. I'ma make my 100 billion back.
Billy, I'm assuming, is billion.
He was one of the reasons, Andrew. You and I talked about it earlier in the week. We had a nearly $2,000 move in Bitcoin this weekend. If you take from the high to the low to where it finished, it was more like a $3,000 move because it went from like 7,800 to 5,600, 6,400.
Back to 7,700 where it is right now.
Wow.
I know.
I mean, the ride he bought on that dip. And
so did I.
He bought, it was just, congratulations. I believe it was disclosed that he bought approximately 30 million worth of Bitcoin on the drop. And that's exactly how you're supposed to do it, by the way, when it's hard and when there's blood in the streets. And he did it, and it worked. That doesn't mean he made 30 million. He has made far more than that in Bitcoin on that move. If you're buying it, let's say he started averaging in at 6,000 all the way down to 5,600. And to Andrew's point, it's back to 7,700. You guys can do the math. Each coin he may have made somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500 to $1,700 without saying he bought the low. Just saying, in that range, he may have made that much per coin that he bought. So that's, let's call it 25%. I'd take it in a day.
Brave new world we're sitting in. All right, so speaking of Brave New World, CME now has Terry Duffy came out with some ideas on margin requirements for because CME and CBOE both have contracts now. They both have futures or, a derivative product.
They've announced plans.
Yeah,
they've announced plans. Yeah.
I think this is like, I could imagine what the phone lines look like over at CME and CBOE for like, what the hell are all these people calling for? We'll try and break down some of what's happened in the past and now. The message today that it was going to be 30%. And when you were a market maker and you owned your own brokerage firm on the CBOE. What about was margin to trade? I mean, it was a little different because you were an owner of a seat and all that stuff, but what was it compared to this?
Yeah, well, we could get leverage of 200 to 1. And that was, within the guidelines. That's risk-based haircuts. And that is because we were making a two-sided market and we were a market maker of a national exchange. So for all those reasons, we could get massive leverage. We could also get it in futures. I think the important thing here is that this is baby steps, and it's smart for both the CME and when the CBOE comes out with their terms, for them too, as well as Cantor, because Cantor's going to be in the market
right.
too.
Cantor too.
It's going to be important for them to, not over leverage the product. For instance, yes, there are places on the internet, I don't need to say them on air right now, but there are places where you can get leverage already, significant leverage. Most of them are overseas exchanges. Most of them you have no idea about the capitalization of those exchanges. And is there any guarantee of performance? It's one of the things I think, Andrew, that Mr. Pettifree, Tom Pettifree,
oh yes,
another friend of mine, the billionaire who owns Interactive Brokers, he paid for a full-page ad. Was it in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times?
Yes, it was
Wall Street Journal?
Yes.
All right, and he was saying how that kind of leverage can kill, and that it could be a catalyst for a big debacle. He is not wrong. Luckily, the CME, with their proclamation, is going to come out with a 30% margin, meaning, obviously, that with a third of the money, so let's just in rough numbers, let's say it was trading 6,000, you could trade it with 2,000 in your account. That would be the 1/3 or 30% margin number, right?
Still cheaper.
So you wouldn't have to have 7 or 6,000. I'm using that as an example because it's easy. You wouldn't have to have 6,000 in your account per Bitcoin. You could trade 3 Bitcoins for the 6,000. So that's 3-to-1 leverage. It's nowhere near the kind of leverage you get from crude oil, from nat gas, from silver, from gold, from virtually everything else the CME trades. So this is very conservative margining, and I think it's appropriate.
But
I also think it'll change. I think it'll change as they get used to it. So in other words, I think it'll start at 2 or 3 to 1, and it'll move up from there, but not immediately. They won't need to do it immediately. They will move slowly as they prove out the concept and the trading. But I think people will gravitate towards all of these competitors, CME, CBOE, and if Cantor gets in, Cantor, because they're looking for, okay, who's a good pay? Who is out there that's going to, guarantee me payment? Well, CFTC, Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and CME Clearing, those are pretty robust entities. I would say I'm going to get paid if I put on a trade there. But again, overseas, where you might be able to get more leverage, you have no such guarantees because they don't have the full faith and credit of all of those member firms, which include Goldman Sachs, Nomura, Morgan Stanley, TD, Toronto Dominion Bank, you name it, Deutsche Bank. Everybody's members of the CME and CME Clearing. So you've got pretty good comfort level with that.
And some of the stuff we can't share in this podcast, you've been sharing, there's some Fortress emails that they have some charts in there. I mean, it's not proprietary. Well, it is, but it's interesting that they're making a move into this space. I mean, they're the big guys are coming for this stuff, and one of the price targets on one of those charts you sent me was like $20,000 to $30,000 per coin. So, anyway, moving on.
Well, and your buddy Andrew and mine, Mr. Breen, Lou Breen over at DRW.
That's right. DRW. That's it. He's another one that's been coming.
DRW is making huge markets in Bitcoin. Goldman just sent a bunch of traders over to Hong Kong to make, so they can set up basically 24-hour trading for them to make markets in Bitcoin. And that's just the first. I mean, they will be making markets in the others. the other cryptocurrencies as well.
That's what I used to do in Hong Kong. That's where the gold market used to be. It used to be above the bar that I worked in. And the British traders used to come down. Yeah, they were all gold traders. And they were there specifically to make markets in gold 24 hours a day. And that was the place to go to make them. They were just like keep the seat warm until London opened back up. That was around the time of, what's his face? The guy that brought down Ing Bank.
Leeson?
Yeah, Nick Leeson. Yeah.
Nick Leeson?
Yeah.
Over at, was it Barings?
Yeah, Ing. Yeah. It became Ing. But yeah, it was Barings Bank. But yeah, he used to go to the same bar in Singapore that I used to go to. Anyway. God, now you got me thinking about old times. All right, back into regular stock land. You doing any trades today?
Yes, sir. Let's see. Because of the activity in the puts, the XOP, that's the oil and gas ETF, we noted a bunch of puts trading for like 23 cents at the 32 strike, December 1st the day before, and that is OPEC on the 30th of November. So I'm pretty sure that's why people were aggressively trading these puts, because they're thinking, hey, if they announce something that they can't extend production cuts and so forth, oil and gas players might get spanked. That's my read of it anyway, Andrew. And it's cheap shots, 23 cents. I mean, that means $23 per 100 shares of that contract. So, $230, you're controlling 1,000 shares of the XOP spider. And I think that's a cheap shot, especially if you think maybe they can't rein in all of the players at this OPEC meeting on the 30th.
Which never happens because OPEC can't get there. Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, one more before we go.
All right, let's see. There was a COT. It's one of the simplest businesses you can imagine. It's multi-billion dollar business, but this is like coffee, water, creamers, things like that. In other words, it's a Canadian-based company, but that's what they do. They provide all of those services. They are the biggest for providing all that to businesses across the country, and of course throughout Canada. So we saw fast money flowing into the 1750 calls, I think it was, Andrew, in that one. So I bought that even though the stock was down, and the stock popped into positive territory in the last hour. We'll see if it holds there and where it goes, but that's a good upside bet, and my buddy Mario Gabelli's in that name as well.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. A lot of stuff to chew on with this podcast. And you will be in the office tomorrow, so maybe we'll do video tomorrow. Won't be online.
Yeah. Let's do a video, maybe answer some questions.
Oh, that's
As
right.
always, folks,
tomorrow will be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Shoot us some questions on YouTube in the comments section, or iTunes or Google Play, because that's where you can sign up. You'll know every time when a podcast is going up if you sign up. So YouTube, Google Play, or iTunes. And have a great afternoon, Andrew.
Novogratz.